Welcome to the Prioritize You podcast, your go-to for connection and support in your journey of prioritizing your health in the chaos of motherhood. I'm your host, Brittany, health, fitness, and nutrition coach and mom of 3. I've navigated the depths of postpartum challenges, and through personal experience and 15 years of professional experience as a health and fitness coach, I was able to develop practical systems and frameworks to not only stay afloat, but to thrive physically and mentally. It's called the Prioritize You method. Say farewell to the pressures of perfection and restrictive routines. No more guilt, no more rigid regimens, no more burpees, just a compassionate space where self-love and sustainable practices are the goal. It's time to rediscover your energy, enthusiasm, and confidence as you take on the most kind and gentle journey of prioritizing you. Let's do this. I'm right here with you, promise. Oh my God. Hi. How are you? I am feeling pretty good today. I feel like, I don't know, there's not a cloud in the sky. Fall vibes are coming. I have an order of like Halloween decor on its way, which I'm super stoked about. Like, I am loving fall now that I have kids way more than I used to. First of all, I'm not just like sweating my balls off when I'm outside and they're playing. Like, everything is just like so much more enjoyable. You know what I mean? And like, I love holidays more now than I did prior to having kids because it's just so much more fun. Like, it's more magical. You know what I mean? Anyways, today what we are going to talk about is how to get motivated to like stick to the goals that you have. You know, like there's always going to be days that you like wake up and you're just like, not today. But like, let's talk about how to get motivated and stay motivated. And we're going to talk about specifically 5 tested and foolproof strategies that I myself use and my clients use all of the time. All right. Now, here's the thing. The goal of this episode is to freaking motivate you. Like, that's what we're talking about. So let's get motivated. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is like, you have to think about all of these different strategies. Like, how could you use it? And like, not all of them are going to be perfect for you. Everybody is so different. If you've listened to my podcast or ever talked to me or follow me on socials, you know that I say that a million times because it is so true. There is no like cookie cutter program that every single person in this world can do and see positive results from it. Nope, that's not how it works. Like, we are all so different. So my goal for this episode and like you listening is think of like all of these strategies that we're going to cover today and think about which ones you could apply for yourself. And then maybe like, I don't know, I'm really, really sensitive like to my cycle. So when I am ovulating, something different could motivate me than like when I have my period. You know what I mean? So like, think about that. What strategies are going to work for like different times of your cycle? Even different times of your day. You know what I mean? Like, does your brain not work in the morning? Okay, well then maybe use like a really easy strategy. And then later in the afternoon, you're like, okay, this strategy works better because I have a little bit more brain power to make like different decisions. You know what I mean? Like, we just have to like think of ourselves a lot. And so I'm really excited to share this because number one, this was a requested episode, which I love. I love sharing things that people actually want to hear. Like, that makes me feel good. And I'm excited because I think this is actually going to be useful. Like, these are the things that we need to hear. And here's the thing about motivation. Like, it comes and goes, you know, like one day we could be on top of the world and be like, oh my God, I'm going to change my life. And like, look at me go. And the next day you can be like a freaking sewer rat troll and be like, nope, I will do nothing ever again. And this is how I'm going to live. And it's like, honestly, we just got to kind of get real with the fact that like our hormones can and do influence how we feel so much, and get real with it and like just be aware of it. You know, like, it's not something to be like ashamed of. We're women. That's just like what it is. We cannot control our hormones. There are things that we can control, right? But like the actual hormonal systems that are like in our body and like having a cycle, that's out of our control. So like, let's be real, you know? But there are things that can influence our hormones. And like, those things are like I mentioned already, obviously your cycle, which we can't control, but your sleep influences your hormones. There's things that we can control within your sleep, and then there's things that we can't. Our nutrition, your fitness, your stress levels, all of these things like can influence our hormones, right? And I like to mention that because being aware of this can help you realize that when our hormones are all over the place, our motivation might be a little bit lacking. And that's okay. It's fine. It's just something that we have to recognize and then say, okay, here's the facts. Here's what's going on. And now here's what I'm going to do about it. Someone said to me this week, if you don't know, I have POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And essentially I just get like really dizzy all of the time, or not really dizzy necessarily as much as like lightheaded. And so there's some things that like I really specifically have to do for my POTS. And I was talking to a doctor this week, and I was like, okay, I've been dealing with this syndrome for so long and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, well, it doesn't really matter how long you've been dealing with it. It's what you do about it now that matters. And I was like, oh shit, I'm stealing that. So that's what we got to think about. Like, it doesn't matter what your symptoms are or like the things that you're struggling with. What matters is, okay, well, what are we going to do with it now? What are we going to do now? Like, there's a time to like dwell on things. There's a time to say like, oh my God, poor me, or like this sucks, or I need to vent. And then there's a point in time where we say, okay, well, that's enough of that. And then we move forward. I had a client in the past, and I've done this actually with a lot of clients. So if you're listening and you're like, oh shit, you've done that to me. Yeah, because I've done it to a lot of people. So being a personal trainer, you kind of are like a therapist, right? Like, we get to hear a lot of like the vulnerabilities of people's lives. When people go to the gym, they're in a vulnerable position because they're exercising and whatever. And so we become a therapist a lot of times. People start venting and they just like tell you about their day, and they're just like spilling the beans on stuff, which like is not a bad thing. That's a very, very normal thing. And when I've hired personal trainers, I've done the exact same thing to them, right? Like, I've just unloaded on them. And I've had people come in and they are just vent. And it's almost like I can see it making it worse. And so what I've done is I'm like, okay, 2 minutes. I'm going to set a 2-minute timer, and I just want you to rant. And then once that's done, we're going to move forward. Okay, so you get 2 minutes. And when this 2-minute timer comes off, now it's time to move forward. Like, there's nothing more that we need to do. Or, maybe it's a 5-minute timer, depending on what they need. But like, whatever. The point is, okay, here's the facts. Now what are we going to do? Right? Holy crap, I'm already like ranting in this episode. So let's keep moving, because I do like to keep these episodes nice and short, right? Like, I'm trying to be mindful. All right. You see what I'm doing here? I'm keeping the episode short. I'm being very mindful, very demure, very cutesy. If you're not on TikTok, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, let's keep going. What I like to do with my clients is work with them to really like figure out what their values are, their vision for themselves, and then align their intentions and goals with what they are willing to put into their journey, right? And like, once we have all of that sorted, we can figure out ways to build motivation around that. Because we can figure out ways to motivate you when your motivation is low. Like, we can do that, but we have to kind of know, like, what are you all about? What do you like? What do you not like? Like, what was your love language? Like, all of these things. So one thing that I absolutely hate in the industry that I'm in is a lot of people, like, I don't know, are just like really rough with like it's not motivation, it's dedication. And it's like, okay, sure, but like, what do we do with that? That's not helpful. So first, we kind of do have to be motivated, right? Like, in order to do anything, we have to be motivated, you ass. So like, fuck off and give me something useful. I just don't like that. I don't like when people are like, oh, you're looking for motivation? Oh, well, clearly you're not dedicated to what you're doing. Okay, and like, that's literally why I asked the question, I don't know. I just don't understand like hating on people for wanting to do better. Like, just because you're not in that position now, like, why does that mean that you get to like be rude to someone else? Ugh. You know what I mean? If you can't tell, I am literally about to get my period. So like I am just kind of like a raging human being right now. So like don't mind me. We're going to get through this though. So here is what I do to get motivated. I think of shit that motivates me. Right? Like you have to kind of get personal with yourself. There's no trick or perfect tip that can be like, "Oh, jump up and down for 1 minute and you're going to like miraculously want to work out." Like, what? No. No, that's not how it works. You have to figure out what motivates you. So, I'm going to go over, like I said, 5 like kind of tested and foolproof ways to get motivated or stay motivated. And so here are those things. This is kind of what has traditionally worked for a lot of my clients. Number 1, ask yourself what you will feel like if you do or you don't do the things that you are contemplating, right? So if you're like, this is one that I do. I actually did this yesterday morning in my bed because my alarm goes off at 4:44 in the morning. And I was like, oh man, I'm a little bit tired still. And that was like the first thought that I had. And I was like, okay, how am I going to feel if I do get up and like go do my workout? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably going to feel really good. And I work out in the morning with my best friend. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get to see her and chat. And I hadn't seen her in a couple days. She was on a trip. Like, who are you? And then I was like, okay, what if I don't go do this? And then I was like, usually have less energy throughout the day. Like, takes a lot longer for me to wake up in the morning. Like, you just kind of give yourselves like the pros and cons list. And all of a sudden it's like very clear what you should do. Now, I'm not saying that that's always the case because sometimes I'm like, oh, if I don't go, I'm going to get like way more sleep and I'm probably going to feel like more rested. And if I do go, I'm probably going to be exhausted and like be shot by 2:00. So it's not like the answer is always clear, but the answer is not always go do the thing. That is one thing to be very, very mindful of, okay? So ask yourself what you will feel like if you do or you don't do the thing. Number 2, this is so big. Do not let yourself get to the point of negotiation. Because if you start negotiating your way out of something, you've already quit. I'm sorry, but this is so true. So the second you like start to feel yourself be like, well, if I do that though, like just have that be your trigger and be like, nope, I'm just going to do it because I said I would, right? Or you know what? If I'm negotiating, it probably means I don't want to do this. Again, you have to kind of know yourself. We have to like stimulate some awareness in here of like knowing what you need. But if you get to the point of negotiation, there's almost no going back. So, and here's the thing. If you're thinking to yourself, okay, but your point number 1 of like asking yourself if you do or don't go, isn't that kind of negotiating? No, because that's just like the facts. Those are the facts of if I do go, this happens. And if I don't go, this happens. Number 2 here, this is negotiation. This is like trying to come up with reasons not to do it or reasons to get out of it. All right. And if you get to that point of negotiation and like conversation in your head, you've already lost. You've already quit. Okay. So try to stay just to the facts versus getting to the point of negotiation. Okay. Number 3. Have some motivational or inspirational quotes around you in some way. Maybe you have like a folder saved on your notes app with just like some very motivational quotes that you like to read. Maybe it's the wallpaper background of your phone or your computer, a post-it note on your mirror. Like, it really doesn't matter. I just want it to be something that you like kind of look at and it has like a truly positive tone that will motivate you. Like if you're a tough love person, then maybe it's a tough love quote. If you are like me and trying your best to live like your softest, most emotional life ever, maybe it's like a very soft, like, you can do this, babe, you're the best, you know? It does not matter what it is. It has to motivate you. And so one thing that I do for my clients all of the time is in my like app, I can send notifications to my clients. And so it's kind of like little reminders to do their habits. So I'm going to give you 2 different examples. So I have one gal who was trying to drink more water. And so her reminder to herself was, what was it exactly? It was like drink your water, babe. You're going to feel better. It was like this beautiful little message to herself. And it was so sweet. I was like, oh my God, I love this. That is totally my vibe. And then I want to like preface this with, remember that this is what this person wanted. Okay. So my brother is gay. Okay. And, and so he has like a very tough love, like the most sarcastic, almost self-deprecating humor at times. And he is also in my app. And so he is like kind of a stress ball. And one day we were talking and I was like, oh my God, like relax your shoulders. Excuse me. And he was like, oh my God, yeah, that like really made a difference. And I was like, should I put that in the app for you as a reminder? And he was like, yeah. Like, okay, what do you want me to have it say? Like, what would motivate you when it comes through? And he was like, say, relax your shoulders, you fat faggot. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot type that. And he was like, no, seriously, do it. It will like motivate me. And I was like, oh my God, like it made me feel like so weird because it's not what would motivate me. For me, I would need it to say like, soften your shoulders, relax, like take a big deep breath in and a big deep breath out. For him, he would be like, what? Like, that's stupid. And it's so funny because we are all so different. So think of something that would motivate you. I don't know if I'm going to keep this in here. I might edit this out because I don't want anyone to think like that I'm like using derogatory tones, which I am not. Okay. Again, that is what my brother wanted it to say. Okay. So moving on. Number 4, have someone that holds you accountable. Maybe it's your workout buddy, your coach, your spouse, your toddler. Oh my God, you know those little fuckers don't forget anything. My daughter this morning literally said to me, Mommy, did you go to the gym this morning before I woke up? And sadly, I didn't because she was up for like an hour and a half with a nightmare. But you see what I mean? Like you tell your kid something and they're going to check in on you. It's just like you tell your coach something, they're going to check in on you. You tell your best friend something, they're going to check in on you. Your workout buddy is probably like, where are you? You know what I mean? So like have someone who holds you accountable and like communicate that to them. Like, hey, if you notice that I don't do XYZ, will you just like ask me about it? Because it will be like a trigger for me to like remember to do it. Boom, done. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, that's number 4. Have someone that holds you accountable. Number 5, here's the final one. Listen to motivation. Listen to something that motivates you. This podcast could be a great place to start if it motivates you. Maybe you have other podcasts or audiobooks that you go to for motivation. An audiobook that I have listened to, I actually haven't listened to it in a while. Maybe I will today when I go for a walk. But I love Jen Sincero. All right. If I remember, I will put it in the show notes for you guys. So her book, How to Be a Badass by Jen Sincero. Okay. For some reason, that audiobook is so motivating to me. I love her sarcasm. I love her personality. Her voice doesn't drive me crazy, which I cannot say for a lot of audiobooks. I like listen to a chapter and I'm like, oh my God, your voice is so annoying. I can't even keep going. Which, by the way, if my voice annoys you, please don't tell me because I would probably cry. But think about what things motivate you and what you could listen to. Because again, as moms, we need something that is like quick to the point and not something that we have to like always read. Listening to something can be really, really useful, right? It's one thing to have them though, and it's a whole other thing to actually listen to them consistently to embody the message. So if you're like, oh yeah, I love listening to motivational podcasts. Okay, well, do you do it? Not really. Okay, well, how can we? Like it's one thing to say it, it's one thing to know it, and it's a whole nother thing to actually do it and embody the message. So those are the 5 things. Now here's again what I want you to remember. The way that we are set up as women, our cycle and our hormones are on a 28-day cycle, right? And that means that something that works on day 1 of our cycle for us is likely not going to be the same as what works for you on day 11 or day 22. And that's all okay. We just have to be aware of it and understand how to work with it and not against it. All right. And if you judge yourself for not being motivated, that honestly just makes it all even worse, because now you're stressing yourself out along with not being motivated, which can be like a crazy loop to be in, and it's crazy hard to get out of that loop, right? And it's easier said than done, but we just have to like trigger our awareness of what is going on, and then we can figure out what to do next. I think that's why it's really hard sometimes to like dig yourself out of like a depressive episode, or like dig yourself out of anxiety, because a lot of times it's like we kind of know we're in it, but we haven't gotten real with ourselves and said like, I am super anxious. I am super depressed. Because once we say that in your brain or out loud, we have like labeled it and said, this is what it is. And now we can move forward, you know? And so that's one thing to think about, is like, how can you trigger yourself to have that awareness of what's going on so that you can take that next step to do something next. All right. So like, oh, I'm having a shitty day. I didn't sleep well. Oh, okay. So this is good. I am aware of it. Okay. What can I do right now that would help me feel even 1% better today? Maybe you think about taking a warm shower before bed later so that you can like stimulate some good sleep. And so in place of your usual morning shower, maybe you think, okay, I can have my coffee wrapped up in a blanket today then, because I didn't sleep well. So I'm going to have my coffee wrapped up in a blanket. That's going to be cozy to me right now. And I'm going to move my shower later before bed to help, again, stimulate better sleep tonight. Right? So we just adapt to the changes instead of saying like, well, today's fucked. That's not helpful. Sometimes, sure, but not every day. Okay? Because if we use that thought process every day of like, oh, today sucks, it's done, like that black and white thinking is not helpful at all. Okay? And here's the thing. I know this sounds silly, but taking care of yourself can boost your motivation from going down, like, or like going on like a downward spiral. You know what I mean? And we need motivation because like we just need it, right? And we need motivation in order to have motivation to take care of ourselves. Like, again, it's like this constant cycle and this constant loop that we can stay in or we can get out of. But you have to make the decision to get into that loop or to stay out of that loop. It's either way, it's a decision, and you just get to make that choice. And it doesn't always have to be motivation to do the workouts. It's motivation for self-care in general, right? I posted a reel the other day on social media, and I was talking about like, just show up for yourself. Do something kind for yourself. It doesn't always have to be a workout. It can be like putting lotion on your legs if they're dry. Like, just do something nice for you. Okay? All right. I want to keep these podcasts short and sweet because I know as moms, our time is very valuable. So I'm going to wrap this up right here. But if you can do something for me, number one, if you are on Apple Podcasts, if you could leave a review for my podcast, it would be so, so helpful. And doing so on Apple Podcasts, like on that app, is like the best way to do it. On any other platform, it doesn't transfer to the other ones. So anyways, leave a review on Apple Podcasts for me if you can. Would be so appreciated. But also send me a DM on like Instagram or TikTok or something and let me know if you are liking these shorter episodes or if you'd like some that are longer too. Because again, I'm trying to keep them like right around like that 20-minute mark, because I think, again, as moms, that's about how much time that we have. It's like, oh, I'm on like a 20-minute drive to go do something. This is all the time I have. But anyways, let me know. I would just really love to hear like what you are liking and what you aren't liking possibly. I hope you have the most wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the Prioritize You podcast. If you got something out of this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would screenshot this and share it on your stories, or just share it with a friend. Just imagine if we could all prioritize our needs as moms. I just feel like the world would be a better place if moms were more well taken care of. And if you feel like, oh my God, Brittany, I need support like right now, I get it, and I've got you. Go to my website and fill out the coaching application, and let's get this process started. All right, I'll see you all on my Instagram between episodes. I'd love to hear from you. So send me a DM and let's chat about how you can start to prioritize you. And maybe I'll just create an episode around any questions that you might have. You can also leave a rating and review on iTunes. It really helps me get this message out there and connect with more moms who are in this same position as us. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next episode.